Konnichiwa. This story is part of a series titled Memories of Tehran. A cousin once shared with me how Granny Ferengiz would take the bus from their home in Shemran to the city when Grandpa Ardashir got into one of his moods, which was often. How Granny would nab one of the cousins and take them back with her as a distraction. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled Ameh Khorshid's Carpet. I hope you enjoy it. She was always around the family. I noticed this as I sift through old family photos that now sit abandoned on the shelf in my mother's home. Then one day she was gone. Ameh Khorshid, that is. Ameh being the Persian word for aunt, and Khorshid was her given name. Ameh Khorshid was my great aunt, Grandpa Ardashir's sister on mother's side of the family. By the time I came into the picture, things were not going well between Ameh Khorshid and Grandpa Ardashir, and they probably never had been. What made it worse was, as they grew older, they were no longer surrounded by family. After moving from Shemran to Tehran, one by one, their children, my uncles and aunts, began immigrating to other countries like Australia and America, searching for a better quality of life. Some evenings, Granny would give Mom a call and ask if we could come over for a visit. Grandpa and his sister had been fighting. It was all done in confidence, because if Grandpa had learnt of the call, he would have been furious. The mere presence of guests in the house helped to soothe tensions down. Every other week or so, Mom and Dad would load us into the car to pay the grandparents a visit. The first part of the visit would be spent with Granny and Grandpa in the living room or outside sitting area, engaged in chit-chat. As time grew closer for us to leave, Dad would suggest Brother and I take turns and walk over to Ameh Khorshid's room and spend a few minutes with her. With the exception of Nowruz, the Persian New Year celebration, I do not recall seeing her in the guest room when we arrived or peeking her head in, even to say hello as most people do. Instead, she waited in her room silently until we stopped by for a visit. Thinking back, she had probably been told to stay in her room until Grandpa gave her permission to come out. Granny and Ameh Khorshid probably experienced great relief when Grandpa went out on his walks or left for the summer house in Shiraz for a month or two. Ameh Khorshid was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall. She always wore a scarf over her head and did not seem to bathe very often. That was another source of struggle between Ameh Khorshid and her brother. I remember visiting after one of the fights. While Mom and Dad were attending to Grandpa, I sat with Ameh Khorshid. Ameh Khorshid had been proud of the fact that she stood up to her brother and had bit him several times, drawing blood. What made the story even more captivating was that Ameh Khorshid had no teeth. She had used her gums to bite the chunks of his skin off. Her gums must have been as tough as nails. I remember seeing his bandages. The story is told of how many years prior, Grandpa's dentures had broken and fallen apart, causing him great difficulty when it came time for eating. One day, as Granny and Ameh Khorshid sat to eat their meal, Grandpa got very upset. He lost his temper, as he had done many times before. If he had to suffer, so should everyone else. Grandpa got a hold of the women's dentures and broke them, making it impossible for the two of them to eat. Eventually, Granny got new dentures, but Ameh Khorshid never did. Ameh Khorshid had a habit of repeating the same stories time after time when we visited. Having been brought up to be respectful, I would listen and try to empathize each time. I was always prepared for the visit and pretty much knew how her stories would unfold. First, she would talk about having no teeth and being able to chew with her gums. Then, about fighting with her brother, Ardashir, and finally, she talked about the carpet in her room. Ameh Khorshid spent a lot of time in her room. I am not sure what she did there, except to look at the walls and talk to herself, as many old people do. Her room had no television, radio, or books to read. She had a few magazines where she could picture look, but she did not read them because she never learned how. What I remember the most about her room was it had a small, metal-framed bed with saggy springs. On the times I came to visit, she patted her hands on the spot next to her for me to come and sit. Next to her bed stood a modest-sized dresser, and on the floor a small Persian carpet. The carpet was traditional in design, with faded color and frayed ends, signifying its age. The carpet was her only worldly possession, making it very special. I no longer remember the story of how she got the carpet or why she came to live with her brother. At the time, I was not interested, and it is only as I have grown older that the stories behind those questions have become interesting to me. In 1976, after we moved to Seattle, Dad returned to Tehran to pack our stuff and ship it across. Ameh Khorshid had passed away, and the carpet was a part of the delivery. It sat in the family living room of our home on 76th Street for many years. When Dad passed away in 2010, Mom decided to downsize from the family home and passed a few items on to us kids. As part of the lottery between my siblings, I got the carpet. Years later, the carpet is still in need of even more repairs, which I hope to do someday. In the meantime, I use the carpet sparingly. It sits rolled up and tucked away against the bookshelf. On clear nights, when there is no chance of rain and the moisture has well dried and gone away, I bring the carpet out. Rolling it open, sitting calmly, I gaze up at the stars. On those nights when I feel lost or need a little extra help with a question or two, before I can sleep, I roll the carpet open, burn some incense, and call on the ancestors by name, hoping for some guidance to come my way. I call on Rostamji, Grandpa Dorabji, Grandpa Ardashir, Granny Ferengiz, so on and so forth, making sure to add the appropriate titles, even though they are in a place where it makes very little difference now. After the passing of Dad and the events that followed between brother, mom, and me, the carpet has been my way of connecting or grounding, moving with me as I wander from place to place. It feels like home, and I am surrounded by the spirits of the people I have known and loved over the course of my life. Someday, after I am gone, I hope this old carpet may be passed on to someone who is interested in our family history. May they take it out on dry nights, burn some incense, look up at the stars, call on the ancestors for guidance as they journey through this world.